The Artifacts of Mount Independence and the Stories They Tell. A series of brief explorations of Revolutionary War artifacts from Mount Independence on Lake Champlain in Orwell, Vermont.
Welcome to Mount Independence Vermont State Historic Site in Orwell, Vermont. I'm Michael Blakeslee, and today I'm talking about one of my favorite topics, wine and wine bottles. So we have here some bottles that were actually discovered on the mount, and it's possible to date bottles by their size and shape. So if you look at a bottle like this, which is a reproduction, but it's an onion bottle because the bottle is shaped like an onion. This is early 1700s, maybe even late 1600s. Then you get into what's called a mallet bottle. This is a mallet bottle. This would be in the mid 1700s, 1750 and a little bit earlier. And it's called that because it's shaped like a woodworking mallet. Then you get into these bottles, which were found on the mount, and they're a mallet style, but more cylindrical in shape. And then during the 1760s and 70s, you start to see more cylindrical bottles like this that resemble the current wine bottles. So then we have bottles here that weren't found on the mount, but are of the period, that are beer bottles. So in 1615, James II ordered that wood no longer be used in the making of glass because wood was needed for building ships for the English Navy. So they switched over to coal. And it turns out that coal made a much hotter fire and therefore a stronger glass. In 1633, an Englishman named Digby found that he could add metals to the molten glass, making it stronger, which means you could use a thinner glass. A thinner glass means you could move from a heavy bottle like this to a thinner bottle like these, and it basically reformed bottle making. Plus they could dye it darker, which means that, or it was easier to dye darker, which means that they could put wine in it for storage for a while. When you start getting towards this shape of bottle, many times this shape of bottle was actually for port and not for wine. So that's the general transformation of the wine bottle here on the mount. During this period, there was a great change in how much wine people were drinking. And there's a question of whether the average soldier ever had access to these wine bottles and beer bottles. And there was enough of them found that probably they did, but because you can't tell from where the bottle was found whether they were actually drinking the wine that came in it, because bottles were reused. And here we have an example of a beer bottle that was reused by a physician for medicinal purposes after the beer was gone in it. He mixed a tonic in here and he put a label on it with directions for it. And it's very nicely written in a quill pen on the front of the bottle. So wine consumption was going up from an average of 75 or so milliliters, the size of the wine glass, up to our modern 450 milliliters, which is huge. So you knew that they were drinking, when they drank from glasses, from small glasses. One of the other curious things about the glassware that's been found is we have found no rectangular bottles like this, case-type bottles, that typically transported gin. And we know that they were drinking gin from the journals that were here. The English kept very good records of what they had for meals, and the Americans did as well. So we know that they were drinking wine with their meals, that they had gin at times, which was actually very healthy for them. And they were a lot of the bottles like these were found in the water. As a matter of fact, these were all underwater bottles that were on the site. So we know that they were dumping the bottles sometimes when they were done with them into the water. I can just envision soldiers on night watch down by the lake with no officers around, consuming something from a bottle and then just chucking it into the water. So we have a lot of bottles, we have a lot of pieces of bottles, and it's a very, very intriguing subject of archaeology. And thank you very much.